The Discovery, Chapter 5, Part 2.
Have you been sleeping well? I made sure that you were brought one of the best beds that we have in the castle.
Celestia asked inquisitively. David cringed slightly at the question.
Yeah, well, kinda. I've slept better, but I'm fine. That didn't sound very convincing. Are you sure you're alright, David? We have ponies that you can talk to if you have any issues. Luna would also be happy to talk to you about your dreams if they're troubling you. I know the crash was traumatic. I don't believe any creature could come away from that and be completely fine.
I'm fine, Tia. Just getting used to a new place is all. David replied, somewhat agitated.
Are you sure? Because it's no trouble at all.
Celestia began.
Tia, I'm fine. Don't worry about me in my sleep.
David said with clear annoyance. It was Celestia's turn to frown.
I'm sorry, David. I didn't mean to pry. I'm just trying to give you options.
David sighed.
It's alright. You're just trying to help, and I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you.
David looked out the window into Canterlot. There were ponies all around, going about their final tasks for the day. Shops were closing, and David saw the last of the ponies leaving for their families.
I wonder what a family here is like. Do they have the same kind of problems as we had back on Earth? Their wives and husbands are probably waiting for them at home. Probably got their kids back from school and dinner ready. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to fit in here?
No one knew. No one could help him answer that. The question now wasn't would he ever return home and continue his life, it was would the ponies ever accept him for being so different? As if reading the questions on David's mind, Celestia sat up and gently cupped David's cheek with her hoof, and pulled until he looked at her.
I know you don't feel like you belong, but sitting up here hiding away from the world isn't going to get you anywhere either. If you want to see about making something of yourself here, you need to go out and start mingling. All of Equestria has known about you for the last week, but you still haven't even left the castle. I know you might get some mixed responses at first, but if I know ponies, and I would think that I do, I know that all you need to do is give them some time, and they'll warm up to you. I promise.
There's that warm, motherly tone again, David thought to himself. Her voice was so soft, like velvet against his ears. If it had just been a little later in the evening, David could have fallen asleep listening to just those words alone.
If you want a chance to make anything of yourself in this world, you're going to need to start being a part of it.
Celestia said with a friendly smile.
You're right. I know you are. I just don't know where to go. Who wants to house an alien that they know nothing about? Who would want to hire me? I think I have an answer to at least one of those questions.
As if on cue, there was a knock at the door, followed by a muffled,
David?
Celestia answered for him.
Come in.
The door creaked open and Midnight entered the room, stopping dead in her tracks as she spotted Celestia with David. She immediately bowed.
Princess, I wasn't expecting you to be here.
Midnight said, the surprise in her voice evident.
Please rise. There's no need for formalities here. If you would be so kind as to close the door behind you, I'll explain.
Midnight rose and closed the door behind her. Turning back around, she saw David and gave him a small smile, then returned her attention to Celestia.
Now, the reason I've asked you here, Midnight, is to help David. As you already know, he's been cooped up in the castle for the last 3 weeks. I think it would be a most wonderful idea if he's moved out and lived with you.
Midnight's eyes went wide with surprise.
Did I just hear that right? Celestia wants me to take care of David? Princess, you want me to house David? I would be honored, but I don't know if I can afford some ponies living with me right now. I mean, my salary is well and good for one pony, but with the two of us, I don't think I'll be able to afford my bills. Oh, well, that won't be a problem. I will grant David a small pension to live off of. If he does find a job, then the two of you will be even more financially stable.
Celestia smirked.
Well, I mean, only if David wants to. Do you, David?
Midnight became quiet as both her and Celestia's eyes fell on David.
Well, sure, I guess. I mean, you did kind of save my life. It'd be nice to get to know my hero a little bit. Besides, the least I can do is help out around the house as a bit of a thank you.
David wasn't sure, but he swore he could see the faintest blush on Midnight's face when he said that. She smiled brightly and the blush was gone. Maybe it was just his imagination. He was interrupted from his thoughts when Celestia spoke again.
Well then, it's settled. David, you'll move in with Midnight as soon as possible.
Without giving either of them a moment to respond, Celestia wrapped them both in her magic aura and carried them out the door and down the hall.
Tia, can you put me down? I can walk, you know.
David protested.
I have to agree, Princess. We're both capable of walking, and I don't live that far away anyways.
Midnight said, pointing at her hooves and David's legs for emphasis.
Oh, silly me. I got a little carried away.
With that, Celestia released the pair.
Midnight, please show David to your house. All of his clothes and other things sent to you immediately. Of course, Princess.
Midnight bowed and began walking down the stairs.
Come on, David. This way.
With that, the trio split up. David and Midnight heading down the stairs while Celestia headed to the throne room. Midnight led David out of Canterlot and into the countryside. They walked for almost half of an hour in a very awkward silence. Eventually, the duo reached the end of the country road and turned around the corner to trek up the path to Midnight's house. As they closed the last few steps and walked up the stairs onto the porch, Midnight stopped and turned to David.
Well, I know the last time you were here wasn't exactly on good terms, but this time I'd like to give you the whole tour, so that, you know where everything is and stuff.
Midnight trailed off.
Okay, but, before we go in, I just want to say thanks for doing this. I haven't seen much of you these last few weeks, and, now I'm gonna be living with you. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me. I already owe you a lot, and this just adds to it.
David gave a warm-hearted smile.
Oh, stop it, you. Thanks. It's nothing, really. I'm sure you would do the same for me if our roles were reversed. Speaking of which, I wanted to let you know that the reason I haven't been able to visit you was because of my job. I've been so busy lately, and the princesses wanted to make sure that they had time to look after you before letting you out into the world. I did try to visit, but Princess Celestia kept telling me, soon, you'll get to see him. Next thing I know, she tells me to come to your room today, and, well, here we are.
Midnight finished her story with a shrug.
It's alright, Midnight. Thanks for thinking of me these last few weeks. I knew Tia was up to something today, but, regardless, we'll have all the time in the world to see each other now. Hopefully all of each other. Sorry, what was that? Nothing! I said, let's go inside! It's getting dark out, come on.
Midnight quickly answered. David raised an eyebrow at her obvious lie, but decided not to push the issue. He was her guest, after all. With that, Midnight used her magic to open the door, ushering David in first as he ducked through the low doorway, then closing the door behind them as she walked in. The hardwood floor of the entrance hall greeted the pair as they entered Midnight's house. Stained a dark brown, it gave off a feeling of comfort and coziness, much like a cabin in the woods after a long day in the harsh winter. To the immediate right was a staircase that led to what David presumed was the master bedroom. To the immediate left was a decently sized kitchen with a small booth on the far side. There was still a small dent in the kitchen wall. Straight ahead, David saw the living room. A medium-sized couch with a coffee table and 2 wooden chairs filled the room. A beautiful stone fireplace sat against the wall, small decorative vases lining its edges. Midnight walked over to a small closet at the end of the entryway, and motioned for David to follow her.
Alright, now before I show you the place, I do have one rule. This closet here has a lot of personal stuff and valuables to me. I would really appreciate it if you just left this closet alone and didn't mess with it.
Midnight explained.
Got it.
David replied.
Thank you. Alright, now let me show you around.
Midnight said with an air of relief in her voice. As Midnight began the tour, David couldn't help but remember the morning he woke up in this house 3 weeks ago. The fear, the panic, and the pain slowly coming back to him as the tour progressed. Each step seemed to get harder and harder as he slowly followed through the house. As much as he hated to admit it, the memories of waking up in a strange place with a sword being thrust at his heart made him fearful of this place. Time seemed to slow down as Midnight led David to the guest room. Gone were the bloodied bandages and tattered clothes that he arrived in, and in their place was a very clean room. Almost too clean. Midnight had clearly scrubbed at the carpet for hours to get the blood out. David stood in the room unmoved, while Midnight went about her tour. He didn't follow her when she moved to the next room.
And here's the guest bathroom, fully stocked, so take everything and anything you need.
As Midnight turned around to find David not behind her, she walked back towards the guest room and found him standing in the doorway still.
Hey, David? Are you alright?
She asked quietly.
Huh? Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I can't believe it's only been 3 weeks. Feels like it's been years. What were you saying? I was going to show you the guest bathroom. Listen, if you don't want to stay here because of what happened, I get it. It'd be weird for me to start living in a house I almost died in. Twice. If you'd rather sleep in my room, I can sleep down here if that will make it a little easier for you. No, Midnight, I'm fine, thank you, but I wouldn't ask you to do that. I guess I'm just a little shook up about everything that happened. Do you want to talk about it?
Midnight walked into the guest room and hopped onto the bed before patting the spot next to her.
I guess. Couldn't hurt,
David said, taking Midnight's offer and sitting next to her.
I guess it's still a little surreal to me, you know? Coming that close to dying twice. Even when I was in the military, the concept of death just never occurred to me. We weren't at war or anything, so my life was never really in danger in the military. I guess because of that, I thought I was invincible. Then, when I crashed here, I almost died. I came this close to death, and I even made my peace. I accepted that I was going to die. After everything, to just die like that? I guess it kind of put things into perspective for me.
There were a few moments of silence before Midnight rubbed David's shoulder with her hoof and spoke.
But you're here now, aren't you?
Midnight smiled.
Yeah, thanks to you.
David returned a weak yet sincere smile.
Well, if it's any consolation, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Well, hopefully you never have to, so long as the Royal Guard minds their business from now on. Something tells me after the flank kicking you gave those guys, they won't give you any more trouble.
Midnight finished with a wink. David chuckled for a bit, and the room fell into silence. Both parties were not quite sure how to fill the quiet in the room. Midnight began kicking her legs out from the bed as she thought of something to say. After some time, David looked at the clock on the dresser and saw the time read 9:02 p.m.
It's been a long day. I think Twilight took up all my energy from that 6-hour talk she gave me this morning. You wanna head to bed? I'm pretty tired.
Midnight nodded before hopping off the bed.
Sounds good to me. I'll talk to you tomorrow, big guy.
With that, she turned away and walked out the door. David raised an eyebrow at his new nickname, but said nothing.
Huh, that's kinda cute,
he thought to himself. David lay down on the mattress and stared at the ceiling.
It's been a long and interesting day. Is that a migraine I feel coming on? Great. What am I gonna do now?
Sleep would not come easily for him that night, nor was it entirely desired. Seems like Midnight's been fantasizing a lot lately, but I'm gonna leave it to the imagination of what exactly she's been thinking. Now let's get on to our healthy donators. Top donators are 630, Jason Man, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Stu Hex, Sword Brother and Mordred, Omicron Larry, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Riot Soul, Badass Waffle, Shadow Moon, Luigi88, and many more awesome people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.